Pettifoggery. A pettifogger is a sneaky, underhanded lawyer. We're pettifoggers from Indiana, headed out west for California. Truth be told, the gold rush is over. Some struck it rich, are sitting in clover. Now land is the golden opportunity. It's there for the taking, as you will see, held by rancho dons ere the Mexican War who don't deserve it anymore. Land is the future of agriculture. We will drop down like a wake of vultures and pick their bones, I hear avow. It's time to kill that sacred cow. We'll squeeze the teat till no milk remains, by crooked, illegal legerdemain. We'll change the rules, contest their claims, bleed them with fees for services retained. With new laws, acts, and policies, we'll bring the dons unto their knees, disguise our crimes with legalese, and force them into bankruptcies. A pettifogger is a term used to describe an unscrupulous, shady lawyer. It's not a common term, but I have heard it used on CNN recently. It was likely a common term in the 1800s. After the gold rush in 1849, many white Anglos quickly moved to the Golden State to seek their fortune. The first stanza of my poem shows unethical lawyers heading out west. The gold rush was over. Corporations had crystallized to exhume the last bit of profit to be made by digging in the ground, wreaking ecological disaster in the process. But there remained vast resources in California in the form of arable land. The land was owned by rancho dons. Their rights were guaranteed in the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo at the cessation of the war with Mexico. Knowing there were more ways to skin a cat than one, white Anglo-America proceeded to strip the dons of their property through less than legal means. The sacred cow mentioned in stanza 3 refers to the vast holdings held as ranchos by the small number of dons. Laws were enacted to disenfranchise them from their holdings. Onerous taxes were levied that could only be paid by selling off their property. Squatting was encouraged, where Anglos would simply settle on the land tracts. After a time, they could legally challenge the dons for title to the land. The original titles that were granted by Spain at the formation of Mexico were deemed invalid, according to the Treaty of Guadalupe, since Spain was not party to the treaty. Depending on the court's rulings, squatters also had rights to claim the land. The dons fought back in court, even up to the Supreme Court level, and many won, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. In the process, lawyers charged such high fees that the only way for the dons to pay was to sell off their land. Further, we read in Chapter 3 in Racial Fault Lines the many examples of how individuals were forced to sell their land. To pay his taxes and legal fees, Ignacio del Valle was forced to borrow $3,000 from Anglo creditors, rhymes with predators, at an interest rate of 3% per month. This meant he had to come up with $90 each month just to pay the interest on the loan without touching the principal. This was a lot of money in the 1800s. This was usury. Eventually, he had to sell his land or go into complete bankruptcy. Today, these practices are completely illegal. At the time, they were legally used to strip control of California's vast farmable lands from Mexicans and put the control into the white Anglo capitalists' hands. A group of vultures is called a wake while they are feeding on a carcass. Thus the image. We will swoop down like a wake of vultures and pick their bones, all the while pretending to represent the Dons, who were besieged by greedy Anglo-capitalists in a feeding frenzy.